and this is Firm Foundations. Thanks for watching. In this series, we're learning how to separate the facts from the fiction in LDS history and doctrine. Today, we're discussing Rebecca Swain Williams. Rebecca is an incredible early member of the church. Her testimony of the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith, and the LDS Church carried her through immense trials and difficulties and make her a stunning example of faith to us here today. Rebecca Swain was born in 1798 in Pennsylvania. She was the youngest of 10 children. Her family later moved to Niagara near the U.S.-Canada border. She was a fearless child, and once she came face to face with a bear in the woods and surprised the bear by opening and closing her parasol several times before running away. When she was about 17, she met her future husband, Frederick G. Williams. The two married in 1815 and moved to Ohio. In Ohio, Frederick and Rebecca became a medical family. Frederick began practicing medicine, and Rebecca quickly learned the skills necessary to work as a nurse. In 1828, the Williamses moved to Kirtland, Ohio, and it was here that Rebecca first met the LDS missionaries. Rebecca was interested in this new branch of Christianity and the testimonies of the missionaries. She began attending their meetings with her children, and Frederick came with her sometimes as well. One biographer likened Rebecca to Eve in the Garden of Eden, stating she was the first to see the necessity, in her family, of the full fellowship in the gospel. Rebecca was baptized in 1830. Frederick followed her example, later joining the church as well. Upon his baptism and confirmation, Frederick was almost immediately called on a mission that ended up lasting 10 months, far from home and family. His absence was the first of many such trips, during which time Rebecca essentially became a single parent to her children and sole provider. However, in addition to mother, provider, nurse, and wife, Rebecca also became a central player in the early church. Once, when Joseph Smith was visiting her home, a mob encircled the house, trapping him in. Rebecca disguised the prophet as a woman, and he was able to escape through the mob without incident. When Joseph was dragged from his home, tarred and feathered and brutally beaten, he staggered home to Emma, who, when she saw him, fainted, mistaking the tar that covered his body for blood. It was Rebecca and Frederick who cleaned the tar and blood from Joseph's body and tried their best to heal what wounds they could. Rebecca was unafraid to share her witness and testimony of the Book of Mormon with even her strongest critic, her father. When Rebecca announced to her family many years before that she was joining the LDS Church, she was essentially disowned. She continued to write letters to her family, but some were returned unopened, while others never received a response. Rebecca nevertheless persisted both in her faith and in her love for her family. As some of us have probably experienced, Rebecca's father read anti-Mormon articles and was furious with his youngest daughter without respectfully listening to and understanding her perspective and testimony. At one point, Frederick left the church, but Rebecca did not leave with him. Rebecca's father hoped that his daughter would also see the error of her ways as Frederick had, but Rebecca remained constant. We can only imagine the pain, heartbreak, and confusion Rebecca and her father may have felt during this time. Frederick later returned to the church, and thanks to Rebecca's steadfast missionary efforts, one of her sisters also became a member. In 1839, Rebecca's father died, without ever having reconciled with his daughter. Only 3 years later, Frederick died as well. Rebecca, a pillar of endurance, pushed on, immigrating to present-day Utah and driving her own team and wagon the entire way. Once Rebecca settled in Utah as a widow, mother, and now grandmother, she continued to sacrifice for what she knew to be true. She donated her silver to be used in the Salt Lake Tabernacle, and in 1846 she married Heber C. Kimball as one of his plural wives. Rebecca and Heber did not have a physically intimate relationship, but she did help care for the children born to some of his other wives. From the evidence and context, it appears to me that Rebecca and Heber were sealed for time only, not eternity, and that the arrangement was principally to ensure that the widow Rebecca would have the resources and protection that single women lacked at this time in American history. In 1860, Rebecca was called by Brigham Young to relocate with some other members to Cache Valley in Utah to settle the area. Again, Rebecca drove her own wagon, this time from Mill Creek to Cache Valley, with all of her worldly possessions to start over. Rebecca died about a year later, but her testimony and impact did not die with her. Often we focus on the miraculous or spectacular events of the Restoration, but Rebecca is not the central character in any visions or miracles. Instead, she's a lot like most of us. She was a seeker who listened to the testimonies of others, then used her own agency and intelligence to read the Book of Mormon and decide for herself what she believed to be true. Her own spiritual confirmation was enough to start Rebecca on her difficult journey of faith, love, loss, and sacrifice. When Rebecca wrote letters to her father, she quoted from the Book of Mormon and explained beautifully how she came to believe it to be a central text to her belief in God. Her life was riddled with difficulties, but she believed with all her heart and mind that what she was doing was what God wanted her to do, and that her sacrifices would be rewarded throughout eternity. Like Rebecca, we are all tasked with deciding for ourselves, through careful thought, study, and prayer, what we believe and know to be true. As we shape our own testimonies, we can lean on and study the life and testimony of Rebecca Swain Williams, an intelligent, independent woman. We can appreciate that she remained steadfast and immovable without necessarily experiencing the visions or miracles that are so prevalent in early church history stories. And we can choose how we receive her story and where it fits in our own personal understanding of truth and beliefs. Thank you for joining us today. Firm Foundations is created by me, Hannah. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will catch you next time.